Thank you for turning up. And before we start, I want to thank Sean, Zanna, and Ghayath for accepting our invitation and traveling thousands of kilometers to come here. Welcome. Thank you. On behalf of Mathrubhumi and on my personal behalf, thank you. The topic today, the session is on war and writing. Uh, I believe that if there is no war, there is no literature. Sad, but that's the truth. If there is no conflict, there is no war, there is no great literature and no great cinema. I used to wonder why, if there is, the world is so beautiful, everything is fine, will we have writers, will we have storytellers? Today we have with us, with me, Sean. Sean writes on creative nonfiction, how our brain works when we write creative nonfiction. I'll be asking him about how we process pain and suffering and turn it into writing or creative pieces. And Zana is a Ukrainian born Polish writer and journalist. She will be, both Poland and Ukraine are no strangers to violence and conflicts and wars. So Sana will tell us about her experience. And of course, we have Ghayath, born in Syria, Palestinian parents, and he left both the countries and now lives in Europe. So we're going to hear some poetry from Ghayath. So let me start with Zana. Zana, would you please tell us about your experience of conflicts and war?
Hello, thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor. I would not agree with you. I would not idealize wars. Uh, War is destruction. It's not creative at all. So it's not true that we do need the wars to create. I Maybe I would explain this. Now Ukraine is on war. Now it's 2 years that Ukraine is on war. Every family is affected by war, one way or another. All of my friends are affected by war. Till the last day, many of us expecting that war will not break out. And when it broke out, me and my friends, we were not able, not write, but we were not able to read even. And maybe it sounds bizarre, but we were asking each other, no, "Are you able to read?" So it was such a great shock, and just to explain it, that it's not creative at all.
I didn't say the war is creative, but it turns us into creative in many forms. As a writer, it compels you to write. I don't subscribe to war, but the conflicts in war, in some way, your novels, reflect your the experience, a personal experience of memories of conflicts and wars. That's what I meant. Now we move on to Ghayath. And Ghayath, tell us about your experience, of course, before we getting into your writing.
Yeah, the Palestinian part of me. I born in Damascus, and I find myself in the situation where my father were not able to answer my question when I began to ask what it's mean I am a Palestinian, and when it's mean that the rest of the classroom, my colleagues in the school are Syrian. Why we don't have a country? Why this is not our flag? And it's impossible to explain for 6 years old that the European were killing the Jewish because of something called anti-Semitic, ended with the final solution that lead that us as a Palestinian, as a weak nation, to pay our land as a solution for this long racist colonialism history of anti-Semitic. You can't say this to a child. It takes time until understand that we are in this situation because the world have no justice, and because the white supremacy could finish or find a solution for what they call the Jewish question on our land. Later on, I choose my own destiny and I run away from the Syrian regime in 2008 to Sweden. That is because I'm searching for freedom and there is no way to be under dictatorship. Later on, during while I was in Sweden, the Syrian revolution began, ended in civil war. And then in this background, both of them, Palestine and Syria, it was so difficult to hear a typical question like somebody say for me, how are you? And it's turned in a second to an existential question, what you should answer this man. Should you say, I'm fine, while your family under siege and bombing in Syria? In 2014, I remember my mother is from Daraa, where the Syrian revolution began. And in 2014, when Israel was attacking Gaza, I was calling Gaza and calling Daraa because Israel heavy bombing Gaza and my family is there, and Assad regime is heavily bombing Daraa where the Syrian revolution began, and it was confused. Like, I remember one of the people in Gaza, he explained for me that the bombs are smart, and one of my friends in Syria described for me how stupid the bombs because they throw them, no laser and nothing, go everywhere. And I was comparing the death between two. What I want to say that this is the background of my literature, but you will not find it if you read my text. It's hardly you find. So yes, you could find the war, but in a different way. Like I see the war as a background. I could speak a lot about this, but I always try to avoid to speak in a direct way. But it's always there. It's always there. Like I didn't succeed for 30 years to write a love poem because
No,
my
I'll come to
dictionary.
that.
Yeah.
I'll come to that. Sean, now, what is your experience of war or conflict in your career, in your writing career? How do you approach?
So first off, thanks so much for bringing me out here, Sabin. I've loved my time and I'm really appreciative. I've been so blessed to not have war be a part of my direct life, and I'm so thankful for that. The research that I've studied, and again, I'm not a neuroscientist, but that I've looked into, what it talks about is how the brain survives. And if we're in moments of conflict, and it could be war or it could be a broken romance, and it doesn't really matter. What the brain does is its number one job is to live until tomorrow. So whenever it gets into a situation that's overwhelming, a situation that's dangerous, the brain has all these functions, and I'll talk about more of this tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I'll go into more detail. But the brain is just trying to figure out how to navigate these situations. So what it does is it speeds up so that it can take in more and more information. So that's why it feels a lot of times like in moments of conflict, moments of war, that the world slows down. And it's slowing down because your brain is speeding up. So that would be part of it. And then the other part is the brain, again, wants to keep us alive, not just for tomorrow, but also in the future. So if we're dealing with very traumatic things that could kill us, it puts these memories down in different ways than it would a normal day. The normal information gets washed away if it's not important in 3 days. But if it's a traumatic experience, then it'll get recorded by the amygdala in a completely different way. And that's where post-traumatic stress disorder comes from. So we linger in those moments. Why? Because we're trying to survive. Maybe we no longer need to survive that. Maybe that moment's past. But the brain is just saying, we've got to keep living.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. But before I come to Zanna, he's talking about the brain. But it's all about the heart. Can we talk about the heart when we go through these conflicts and add to your comment?
Just a short comment. I think that what I learned because of the war is that we are whole. You can't separate the brain and the heart. And what I also learned, and maybe you confirm, that post-traumatic stress affects memory. And many of my friends and many writers now are saying this, that we have the problems with our memory. And this is a big issue because as a writer, you really need your memory. And many of them are saying we have the problems with our emotional memory. We are cut from our emotions, and so in a way, we are now, all of us, we are crippled, even if you can see this.
I love those ideas, and I'm a creative nonfiction writer at heart. I love telling true stories, and the more I learn, the more I realize that great creative nonfiction is not knowing everything or remembering everything, but it's showing the human experience. So what you're talking about there, the emotional forgetting or the messing of the memory, like if we can get that on the page, then the reader feels how the writer feels, and they understand the destruction of war. They understand the destruction to an individual, whether physically or emotionally. So I just love what you're saying, and it's just an honest way to portray how the human experience is and put that on the page.
Thanks, Sean. And now Ghayath has struggled for some time to write a love letter. You know, he wanted to write a love letter, but didn't have the vocabulary or the diction to write a love letter. But it's all full of violence or war or destruction, suffering. I want Ghayath to take us through that conflict.
Yeah, if I can describe it how it is, I can say poetry in a very classic way. I could say it. I could say the poetry in any time in the Arabic sonnets. I born like this. But when I write poetry, I write the opposite of that. I write text and I rewrite them in a very postmodern way. In the moment I began to write, the whole thing began when I was teenager. I fall in love with the girl and I want to write a poem for her, and ended here, sitting here after 30 years, speaking about that moment where until now I don't want to say I didn't succeed to write a love poem. All my poetry is love poetry, but as I describe it always as it's a love poetry in the shape of nightmares, because I'm a very realistic person. I'm not isolated from reality. If, as Pablo Neruda say, if I open the window and I saw a flower, beautiful flower, and there is a dead body in front of it, I will not be able to write about the flower. I can't be isolated from what I'm surrounded by. In the end, everyone reflects his memory and his experience. When my Swedish colleagues and German colleagues write about the darkness and the snow and the weather, it is because they reflect their life. When I reflect my life, immediately they say for me, like, this is a political poetry. And I say immediately, no, this is not political poetry. This is my life. You have the right to reflect your memory. I have the right. Unless you want me to speak about weather and nature like you, while my family is under siege in Syria and the whole country is under bombing, and you want me to be in another part of the world because you are sensitive to what you call a political poetry. And by the way, if you think about it, everything is political. If you read the text, it's not political, but everything we are surrounded is connected to class and background and feminism and political issues and like this. What I want to say, that the destruction that Israel did to the Palestinian, it's not only to their land and to their stolen houses. Israel destroyed the Palestinian literature by leading us to write only about Palestine and political things. This is the biggest destruction. Could you imagine if we were in a normal situation where I could be free from all these questions and I be free like any poet in the world? I'd be able to express myself in a different way without saying that I'm crossing minefields to arrive to you, my lover. I could say for her, I'm walking on the flower to arrive to you. So the destruction is very, very deep. But in the same time, and I'm a very serious writer, and I can, in a conscious way, I understand all these things, and I choose my path. So I rewrite and rewrite the text in a very serious way, and I don't regret in any way any text and I wrote. And if I have time machine, as I say yesterday, I will repeat my life as it is, because the experience I got, it's a very powerful and joyful, and I never felt as a victim.
Yes, and why don't you just yeah.
So I would agree with you, and yeah, we are much into politics, but it's not our choice now because of those things. And maybe you are not aware of this, but Russia is bombing our cities, and Russia is bombing cultural objects on purpose. And that's also a very important issue because the museums and different places of culture in Odessa, in Lviv, in Kharkiv, in Kiev, they are distracted by purpose now. And that's also very, it shows that Russia wants to distract the Ukrainian soul. It's not only about killing people.
Yeah. 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 So you have anything to add to their emotional bit into all this from your another point of view?
The one thing that, again, I'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, but the one thing I'm hearing from our panelists over and over again, we're talking about writing about war, and we have not talked much, if at all, really about the physical acts of war. Like we've talked about that, but what we've mostly talked about is the emotional impact of war, the psychological impact of war. And to me, that is where, like, maybe anyone could write a scene of war and we could have soldiers and guns and bullets. But that to me is the mechanical part of war, and the truest destruction of war is how it affects humanity, how it affects the world around us, how it changes who we are and how we live and how we love. So to me, so much of it occurs in the heart and in the brain and how we reprocess our world.
Now I'm going to ask Ghayath to read. You know,
Yeah. So I
you
will
can read in Arabic.
Yeah, I will read only 3 lines and I will try to translate them. I have the translation here, but I will
You will
translate.
ask someone to you if you want.
No, I will translate them immediately from my mind. So,
Not just 3 lines. We want more.
yeah, in 2012, I wrote these poems called "The Details," and in that time, I was thinking about all my friends who got killed by sniper bullet in the beginning of the Syrian Revolution, and I couldn't believe that they are dead. I saw through the camera. I was in Sweden. I saw their bodies. They are perfect. Like, but why they are dead? They got a bullet. Yeah, but I was thinking about what it's mean. It's a small hole. And I remember my brother, the one who got killed later in Syria by Assad regime in 2016. He was always say, we die when we got a bullet because 70% of our human body made of water. It's exactly like making hole in a tank of water. And that image was in my mind when I wrote this poem. In that time, I didn't know that I will move to Berlin 7 years after that. And this 2 line I will read is about Berlin. في مدينة أعيد إعمارها مثل برلين يكمن السر الذي يعرفه الجميع وهو أن لا لن أكرر ما هو معروف لكنني سأخبركم بما لا تعرفون. ليست مشكلة الحرب في من يموتون، مشكلتها في من يبقون أحياء بعدها. In reconstructed city as Berlin lies a secret that everyone knows, which is no. I will not repeat what you know, but I will tell you something you didn't know. The problem with war is not the people who died, but it is the people who remain alive after the war. And I want to describe a little about this. One of my brother, he got the trip for 8 months and he arrived to Sweden. And one of my brother got killed by Assad regime. And people always say for me, oh, Mihyar survived. And I was going with them. I repeat this. But deeply inside me, I was thinking all the time, is my brother Mihyar survived? Did he survive? Did Ghassan, who got killed, is the one who didn't? I doubt that. There is no way to survive the war. People say, oh, this man, he survived the Holocaust. No, no one can survive the Holocaust. He remained alive. He's still alive. The surviving is another thing. Do you survive when you have PTSD? When you have the guilt, that surviving guilt that you are alive and everyone you know is dead? Are you surviving when you are outside your roots and the work office want you to go to work immediately and integrate and you have PTSD and nightmares and all this shit? You didn't survive. None of my Syrian friends are survival. None. They are totally smashed outside there. They are like a fish outside the water. It's totally, I don't know how to describe it. The problem of the war is the people who remain alive. Believe me, it is like that 100%.
If I may add, that's totally true. And what I also want to add is that often we don't remember, or we are not aware of indirect victims of the war. Just to add to what you are saying, I am absolutely convinced that my mother, who passed away a couple of months ago in Kiev, she was an indirect victim of this war. It was a blood clot, but she was inside deeply affected by this war psychologically. So we don't count those people as the victims of the war, but there are thousands, if not millions of them. For instance, when the war broke out, many elderly people were dying because of the heart attack, because they were deeply connected to Russia, either by ethnicity, by their roots, by their friends. And it was such a great shock that Russia was attacking Ukraine, bombing Ukraine, that for them, for example, with their Russian ethnically roots, it was such a great shock that they were dying, thousands of them in the hospitals, but no one is describing them as the victims of the war, you know.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to all of that is again, as you two talk beautifully, powerfully, painfully about war, is that it's about these fractured narratives. It's about the people who survive. It's about maybe a kaleidoscope of images and ideas rather than about the action of war. Maybe we need a little action of war if we're writing about it, but more so we need the heart and how it gets wrenched about.
If I ask Gaya to read one more, would you? Because we want to.
I hate poetry. Really. Yeah, but I want to say something. I want to say something about Ukraine, because when somebody like Putin, he say all this bullshit, he say to invade a great wonderful country like Ukraine, the biggest European country we have. He say like every single word he say is a lie. I'm now speaking as a political, not as a poet. He say that he invade Ukraine because there's a Russian community there, because they want to join the NATO and like this. Syria didn't have a Russian community. He killed 250,000 civilians. Okay, Syria didn't want to go to the NATO. My uncle, the brother of my mother, he's a poet, Salah Abu Naboud, he's a French citizen. He got killed by Russian bombing. Mr. Putin bombed my grandfather's house in 2017, and we didn't find even his body. And I was the person who called the French embassy and told them about my uncle. This man is a criminal, and this war is only crime, like for against. And everything he say is blah blah blah, because everything he say about Ukraine, he can't say it about Syria, but he destroyed all Syria by his bombing. So I think that's
Thank
the
you.
only thing I want to add. Only.
Thank you for adding this. We now, in Ukraine, we have this joke that Putin is the man who did the most to, not to support Russian language, but to support Ukrainian language, because now literally all the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, they abandoned Russian language, even if it is their native language. And that's because of Putin, who came with his support of Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. Really, they didn't need this, didn't need his intervention. Yeah.
So you are. I think I open up the for Q&A because there are a lot of questions. I'm sure. So yep. How do you,
Thank you. Thank you for this very stimulating discussion. And as you both were talking, I couldn't just help also think of another casualty that emerges from war. That is something that happens to literature itself, and the kind of boundaries that are hardened. And I go with what you just mentioned, Zana, in terms of literary legacies. If you were to take some of the biggest or the like very famous Russian writers such as Gogol or Bulgakov, but who are of Ukrainian origin, yeah. So this creates another kind of a divide where we would not know, like, yeah, if literature itself is a casualty out of this, and I think, yeah. So this is
Yes, exactly. What this war makes people radicalized. It radicalized them. Yesterday, they removed Bulhakov Street from Kiev. Maybe you heard of this. They destroyed. I mean, the Ukrainians. They destroyed the museum of Bulhakov, who is Kievan origin, which is a stupid thing. But you can't blame the people now who are on war, and that is their reaction. And I don't say that this is a good reaction. And this is also this casualty of war. What that people inside, they are so devastated that they are doing the stupid things, And again, they are throwing the book of Russian literature now, which is a madness. But you can't blame them because they are under the bombs.
I would like to say something. Also, like, because I really hate categories, and the the Western world is so centered on itself. So he make this category like war writers, exile writers. 80 years ago, 60 million European got killed in the Second War, and before that, 20 million in the First War. They never called their writers the war writers. The European is 97% of the immigrant all over the world, for Latin America, Australia. They never call their writers as exile or like this. This is only for us, because they speak from a superiority. While the war literature, it should be only the European, especially from that period, from 1900 until 45. Every writer should be a war writer, because the destruction was so big that whole countries are destroyed. Like in the First War, Belgium was empty. There's not even one person. Poland, there were 60,000 Polish people in Iran. In one Syrian village, the inhabitant was 700 Syrian, 3,500 Polish. Later on, Poland didn't accept to have even more than 1,000 Syrian, and they're supposed to be Christian, because people have fish memory and they speak from this thing. So I disagree totally with these categories. I was a writer before the war. I was a writer with 3 books before I got to the exile. There's nothing called war or exile categories. But this is really the way of the white supremacy thinking we have in Europe. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay, hello. In writing about war, I mean, I agree there are no categories, but I'm wondering if you have tried, or if it is even possible, to depict the point of view of the enemy. As we are trying to, with writing, you try to avoid stereotype, you try to have multiple perspectives. I'm just wondering if that is possible, or if it is even moral. Maybe that's a bit controversial, because I would imagine if there was a panel like this of Russian writers, they might be saying the same thing. I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone.
How could they say the same things?
No,
they,
okay,
they
I'm
are
sorry.
living in
I'm sorry.
peace, but they live in peace. They are not under the bombs.
Okay, I'm very sorry about that. I don't have enough information, but I'm just saying that I'm just curious in terms of writing technique, because I think it's the hardest thing to do, to try to imagine how the other, in whatever form, reason or feel. Is it even a moral thing to do? I think that is my question. And then another is just for stylistic technique about writing about pain, writing about trauma. Right? I'm just curious what, I'm not saying you should, I'm just curious what your approach is.
I started with this being not able even to read, right? So later on, when I start reading during this war, I found out that everything you could find in the novels, in the text from the World War II, everything what we are going now through. So all kind of things are already depicted in great literature, and all is repeating. It's nothing new about this war. But again, when the people, the writers, when they are under the bombs, their consciousness, as you said, their brain now is in this altered state, and probably you can't, like, they are not healthy in a way. Some things are just impossible to do now when the war is not over, because they are not able to do this. For instance, I was at one of the festivals. The Ukrainian writer Victoria Amelina, she was asked about, oh, you Ukrainian writers, do you write now, or are you able to write? And she told me, she told the audience, we are not writing now, we are documenting. Uh, because at some stages you are not able to do certain things. You need peace, you need the quiet, you need time to write some things and to understand some things. And so it was October 2022, and in 6 months she has been killed by a Russian rocket. You know.
The technique, can you talk about the technique of
So your question about can we write about the opposing side? Yes, of course we can. Is it moral? I have no idea. But the one thing I go back to, and again, I'm so blessed with my life and the peace that's mostly been in my life. My belief is that we're all human, and that in all of us there's a lot of beauty, and that doesn't mean it always comes out. But I'm married. I have an amazing wife, and sometimes we get in arguments. And in those moments, I cannot understand her point of view. If I could, we wouldn't be arguing. But if I'm able to step back, which I cannot always do, and see her side, then I can see her humanity. And I think the more we see each other as human, hopefully the less war we have. So that would be my hope. And hopefully literature can bring humans together. And then in terms of technique, for me, again, I was thinking about this book about basketball, an American European sport, I guess international sport. And my friend Jack Riddle wrote a novel and poems about basketball. And there's not a single scene of a basketball game in the entire book. And I love that, because basketball doesn't matter. What matters is what happens before and after basketball. And we could probably replace, on some levels, war with that, or conflict. War matters, war kills people. But it's the ramifications of that. So I would think more about what it does to us and what it does to the future of us.
Hello. So my question is: we live in an age where most massacres are seen by an international audience, even if, and it helps, even if it's in a small way. So, as that is the case, are people in such war-torn places and victims to not only the oppressors but algorithms that turn the suffering of these people into a matter of trends? Because 2 weeks back, I saw like a lot of free Palestine hashtags, which is good. Uh, and a year back, there was a lot of free Ukraine trends, but then it starts to vanish, and that's truly concerning since humans are dying.
So yes, thank you for this question. This is true. Some people in the Western countries say to me directly, now it's like now this Palestinian war which is matters, and Ukrainian war doesn't matter in a way. Why? The people are dying, the rockets are falling, but is it a question of fashion or uh, uh, that's exactly what you say. It's like a big theatrical stage we are observing now, and now it's this spectacle is much more important for whatever reason. Isn't it bizarre?
Firstly, I wanted to thank you. I mean, it was very moving, especially listening to Ghayath and Zanna, all the pain and sadness that you must be undergoing. I have two questions. The first one is when you write of war, which is essentially a very painful, grim, almost dark kind of the human condition, how do you reconcile it with something like literature, which has an aesthetic element to it that's almost feels like there is a creative tension, and perhaps Zana alluded to it by saying it's difficult to write when a war is happening. So that was my first question. Second is, I'm just curious to hear from all three of you, two of you directly impacted by a war, and I think Sean indirectly impacted like the rest of us. How do you think the experience of war might change you as a writer or your writing, and if you look into the future?
So, first of all, uh, I never write about war, and this is very conscious. Like even if it's a smuggle in between the lines, I deleted it. I told you I rewrite the things. The war is the background of my life. Uh, I reflect my memories and experience in as literature do in a mirror, but this is a broken mirror, so you don't got it exactly. I reflect myself. When you read me. The war is playing in the background of my life. What I lose, what I win is in the background, like any literature. The most important thing, as I see and I study literature and I read, that if you think about all the fighters or all the great writers, they never fall in the victimhood era. If you think, well, let's begin with fighters like Malcolm X, like Martin Luther King, Baldwin, Edward Said. If you think, oh, never in their lives spoke as a victims. And because that, I'm so proud of the Palestinian people who never been victims. They are so realistic people. They know that they have problem. They lost their country. They continue their life in a normal way, and they fight. In the same way, I see that in literature, if the word war appear like the text I choose, and it's the only time in my book where the word war it's appear, it is because it came smoothly, naturally, in that place when I speak that the problem of the people who remain alive after war. But you will not see the war. You will see the change in my dictionary, in the words I use, in the imagination, the dead metaphors, everything. So the reflection on war is in us, not in our literature. Later on, you will see it if you are really good critical, or if you study literature, you could find layers after layers of that. Uh, but more than that, I don't see there is distinguish between any Palestinian writer or any Swedish writer. In the end, literature is the same. Everyone have his own way to describe the things. And also, don't forget that every one of us sitting here has his own inner wars. You know, we have our wars in smuggling with our families, with our environment, and with like, so wars is like, it's a metaphor of challenging sometimes or something.
I must say that as a writer, I was very much affected by one novel by Curzio Malaparte, Italian writer, Caput, who wrote about the World War II. And this is a great novel, and it is aesthetically, it is on a very high aesthetic level. And sometimes you, when you are reading this, you have this, oh, is it moral to write in a such aesthetic way about war? And all in all, my conclusion is that it is moral, because why should we abandon beauty even now in a war? So I don't write directly about war so far, but my answer is that I don't want to give to Putin my sense of beauty, for instance, you know.
I want to know how you find purpose in writing, where in times of horror and war, where the works that you write aren't really reflected. You can write about peace and how it affects our people, but the people are still suffering and the suffering continues. And how, as a writer, do you fight in the war? How do you use your writing in a way that affects people and in a way that the words that you write don't feel purposeless? Do you find purpose in writing in war during times of war? Is there purpose in writing?
I'm not sure that I understood the question.
I can answer. Yes, first of all, I really don't believe in peace. I'm against peace. I'm with justice, equality for everyone. So the opposite of war for me is not peace. That life is peace from the beginning. Somebody make war. People should have equal rights. Doesn't matter what is your background, where are you from, equal rights. For example, in Palestine, one state solution, I support that. Wonderful. All people equal rights. Two-state solution, great. Three-state solution, no problem. 265.3 state solution, doesn't matter. All people must have equal rights. Peace without peace, equal rights. You can't say to a person, you can't do this because you are Jewish, you're not allowed to enter here because you are Muslim. People pay tax and equal in front of the law. Everything will be in peace. Also, I want to say for you that literature is like anything in the world. The only difference between us and the engineers that we document, we making a document of an era sometimes, while engineers, even if they build a building, could remain for a while and then it's have age and will disappear the building. But with literature, you are a document era, and it's not individual. It is, you take it as a big group of people, and then you could study this society in the future through literature. For me, I believe that literature is not different than any job. You should master it, you should be conscious of what you are doing, and you should do it in high quality. If you're not able to do that, I wish you good luck.
And also, I think that literature is a very complicated thing, and it doesn't work directly. It is, it could approach you, for instance, not speaking directly about war, but it could give you understanding about war. And sometimes it needs like years and years to affect people. So it we can't work directly with our literature now. You know, if you know what I mean. We need time and we need reflection and we need this, you know, calm and peace, to understand what is going on, to have this possibility to name it. Yeah.
It's true that you can't write when the war is on. Do you think we need time to process that experience, right? And with that, yep.
Well, just to answer your question, to me, writing helps me become a better human for myself, and hopefully it shares something else with the outer world. Even if I never published, I need to write to be my better self, or as best as I can make myself. And in terms of reflection, I remember when I was in grad school, a lot of times they said you're too close to the moment and you need more space. And I get that, but also life happens in moments, and we don't always have time to reflect. So I think we could write in the moment and recognize that we're going to be really close to those emotions, and we won't be as intellectually smart, but maybe we'll be more passionate. And then if we can give ourselves more distance, maybe we can be more creative but not as passionate. So the human experience is living through all of this in the moment and uh, in those past moments.
If there are any more question, we will. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that if the literature has failed, because even after two great wars and sufferings and losing so many lives, millions of lives, and we have a humongous amount of literature against war, we have films, we have. Are we speaking to the huge emptiness? Now nobody is listening. So even after 75 years, even after so many was still it is happening. What is the purpose of the writing? So are we a defeated tribe as far as writing is concerned?
Are we? Defeated tribe. Defeated people
As writers, I'm saying, as a writer, as a whole, writers, artists, any.
What I can say that war is a destruction and writing is a creative thing. So this is an opposite thing to war.
Is anybody listening? We are speaking to ourselves, our readers, our writers. So the real point we are making, it doesn't reach to any place which really has the power and authority to control all these things. Putin will never read your literature, or those people who are dictators, they will never listen to your voice. So what is the purpose? Sometimes we feel we are failed the community in a
Yes,
way.
I feel this sometimes too. Yeah. Do you want to answer?
I want to say that the destinies of our lives is lead. It's direct the work we do. If it was art or literature. So if I was born to a family in Odessa, a Jewish family in Odessa who immigrated to America running away from the Nazis, maybe now I will pro-Palestine like all my Jewish friend who pro-Palestine. I like every Jewish and Israeli people I know. I'm very lucky, and they are hundreds. They are really pro-Palestine. I know how to choose friends. Maybe I don't know, but what I want to say: if I was born in the south of France, maybe I will be this medical worker for taking care of cows and very racist, voting for the right wings because there is a lot of immigrant threatening my life, and I hate Palestinian because they hate the Jew. Of course, we didn't, but yeah. But it is like this. And if I was, my daughter will be a writer. Maybe she will write love stories, not connected to anything connected to the war. I find myself in this situation where I am in Damascus. Why? Because we don't have a country. Like that was the beginning, and so it's like I swear I don't like it at all. Like, but it's not a choice, man. Fuck war. I don't know what to say.
Well, the other thing is, again, if no one reads our writing, but we're writing for justice, we're writing for anti-war, we're writing for equality, even if that just changes ourselves and the conversations we have with our friends and our loved ones, that's more than enough. So,
Can we close on that note? Thank you so much for Ghayath, Zanna, and Sean for your valuable inputs and taking us to a journey to emotions. And thank you so much. Thank you.